本师释迦牟尼佛，南无本师释迦牟尼佛，南无本师释迦牟尼佛。自在菩萨行深般若波罗蜜多时，照见五蕴皆空，度一切苦。舍利子，色不异空，空不异色，色即是空，空即是色，受想行识亦复如是。舍利子，是诸法空相，不生不灭，不垢不净，不增不减，是故空中无色无受想行识，无眼耳鼻舌身意，无色声香味触法，无眼界乃至无意识界，无明亦无明尽，乃至无老死亦无老死尽，无苦集灭道，无智亦无得，亦无所得故，菩提萨埵依般若波罗蜜多故，心无挂碍，无挂碍故，无有恐怖，远离颠倒梦想，究竟涅槃。三世诸佛依般若波罗蜜多故，得阿耨多罗三藐三菩提。故知般若波罗蜜多是大神咒，是大明咒，是无上咒，是无等等咒，能除一切苦，真实不虚。故说般若波罗蜜多咒，即说咒曰：揭谛揭谛，波罗揭谛，波罗僧揭谛，菩提萨婆愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了，不愿罪障悉消除，是常行菩萨道。
Ya da. Kale, oh.
Good morning, Your Holiness. Tapi Dalai. Arya Bhagawati Prasna Paramita Hidayat Sutra. Sutra hati penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan. Penuh hormat saya sembah Sang Triratna. Demikian telah saya dengar. Suatu saat, Sang Buddha sedang berada di Raja Griha, di Gunung Puncak Nastar, bersama dengan serombongan biksu-biksu, dan bodhisatwa-bodhisatwa. Pada saat itu, perhatian Sang Buddha sedang terpusat pada konsentrasi yang menyelidiki semua fenomena dalam jumlah tak terbatas, yang disebut pencerahan yang mendalam. Pada saat itu juga, Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasatwa, sedang mengamati secara seksama praktek penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam, serta mengamati secara sempurna kosongnya kelima skanda dari keberadaan yang sejati. Kemudian berkat inspirasi dari Sang Buddha, Yang Terhormat Sariputra berkata kepada Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasatwa, bagaimana seharusnya seorang putra dari silsilah baik berlatih bila ia ingin menjalankan praktek penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam. Lalu Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasatwa menjawab, Sariputra, siapapun putra atau putri dari silsilah baik yang ingin menjalankan praktek penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam, seharusnya mengamati secara sempurna demikian. Lihatlah secara sempurna dan tepat kosongnya kelima skanda dari keberadaan yang sejati. Bentuk adalah kesunyataan. Kesunyataan adalah bentuk. Kesunyataan tidak lain dari bentuk. Dan bentuk tidak lain dari kesunyataan. Demikian pula halnya perasaan, kemampuan membeda-bedakan, faktor-faktor pembentuk, dan kesadaran adalah sunya. Sariputra, demikianlah semua fenomena sunya. Tanpa ciri, tidak diproduksi, dan tidak berakhir. Tidak bernoda dan tidak dibersihkan dari noda, tidak berkurang dan tidak bertambah. Oleh karena itu Sariputra, di dalam kesunyataan tiada bentuk, tiada perasaan, tiada kemampuan membeda-bedakan, tiada faktor-faktor pembentuk, tiada kesadaran, tiada mata, tiada hidung, tiada telinga, tiada lidah, tiada tubuh, tiada batin, tiada rupa, tiada suara, tiada bau, tiada rasa, tiada yang disentuh, tiada fenomena, tiada unsur mata dan sebagainya. Hingga tiada unsur batin dan juga tiada unsur kesadaran mental. Tiada ketidaktahuan dan tiada berakhirnya ketidaktahuan dan sebagainya. Hingga tiada proses penuaan serta kematian dan tiada berakhirnya proses penuaan serta kematian. Begitu pula tiada duka, tiada penyebab duka, tiada akhir duka maupun jalan benar, tiada kebijaksanaan yang arya, tiada pencapaian maupun bukan pencapaian. Maka Sariputra, karena tiada pencapaian, para bodhisattva mengandalkan dan memusatkan diri dalam penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan dan dalam hati mereka tiada gangguan maupun ketakutan. Dengan mengatasi pandangan-pandangan yang sesat, mereka mencapai keadaan tanpa dosa. Semua Buddha dari ketiga kurun waktu dengan mengandalkan penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan telah mewujudkan keadaan yang tidak terlampaui, pencerahan yang sempurna dan lengkap. Oleh karena itu, mantra penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan adalah mantra pengetahuan aku, mantra yang tak tertandingi, mantra yang tiada taranya, mantra yang sepenuhnya menenteramkan semua derita secara tuntas. Karena mantra tersebut tidak palsu, ia dikenal sebagai kebenaran. Mantra penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan dikumandangkan. Sayata, gate-gate, para samgate, bodhisoha. Sariputra, demikianlah seorang bodhisattva mahasatwa seharusnya berlatih dalam penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam. Kemudian Sang Buddha bangkit dari konsentrasinya dan memuji Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasatwa sambil bersabda, penjelasan yang baik, oh putra silsilah, memang demikian putra silsilah, demikianlah seharusnya penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam dipraktekkan, dan para tathagata akan bermudita-cita. Ketika Sang Buddha bersabda demikian, maka Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasatwa, dan seluruh perkumpulan para siswa maupun para makhluk duniawi, para dewa, manusia, Asura, dan Gandharva bergembira dan memuji sabda Sang Buddha. Demikian sutra mulia hati penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan telah selesai.
Thank you.
I pay homage to the mother of all the Buddhas, Prajaparamita.
Yeah, that's it. Other Asia,
So the different Dharma centers in Asia, my Dharma friends from these different Dharma centers, as they have requested, today we are on the second day of the teaching. So here in the beginning, the Chinese Dharma friends recited the Heart Sutra, and so what is the purpose of the Dharma and or the professional wisdom teachings? Is it just for recitation of prayers? That's not the case. In their prayer, they say, may all the three poisons be eliminated or dispelled. And so, in order to eliminate all these poisons, within our mind, we need to overcome the ignorance. And this must be done not through prayer, but by developing the wisdom that realizes the reality and nature of things. And then they also pray that may we be free from obstacles. And then they also prayed to be able to engage in the bodhisattva practices, which is not just for done with a selfish motive for oneself alone, but in order to help all other sentient beings to reach enlightenment. And so this prayer is a very comprehensive prayer. So when you say this prayer, it actually moves me as well. So the teaching that we are going to go through is the Autocommentary to Entering the Middle Way by Master Chandrakirti. And so, as I said, so regarding Buddhism, the teaching of the Buddha, the essence of which is, we can say the essence of the teaching of the Buddha is that of the Heart Sutra. And so to overcome the three poisons of our mind, attachment, anger, hatred, and ignorance, we need to gain insight into emptiness, which is taught in the Heart Sutra. And so all the philosophical schools of Buddhism teach the selflessness or anatma. So when you talk about anatma or selflessness, you need to understand what it means. And there are various degrees of understanding the meaning of selflessness. According to the Vaibhashikas and Sutrantikas, they also do explain selflessness. They do assert selflessness and teach it. So all the different philosophical schools of Buddhism teach selflessness. And then in the Sanskrit tradition, sometimes we call it Mahayana and Hinayana, but I don't prefer to use these terms, Mahayana and Hinayana, where there seems to be some kind of discrimination between something, one being higher than the other. And so I use the terms Pali tradition and Sanskrit tradition. So whether it's in the Pali or the Sanskrit tradition, why we suffer is because of this unruly mind, due to which we create karma. And pain and pleasure are not without causes and conditions. Both arise through causes and conditions. And the root of all this suffering is, according to the Pali and Sanskrit traditions, the different texts, there is teaching on the 12 links of dependent origination, and which begins with ignorance. So the first of the links, 12 links, is given as ignorance. And so the teaching of the Buddha is based on reason and logic. It doesn't say that our pain and pleasure are creations of a creator God, or it's without any causes and conditions. It's not without any causes and conditions. And in Indian tradition, there is talk of ahimsa, non-violence, and karuna, compassion. Even before the Buddha appeared in the world, these traditions were there. So ahimsa means non-violence, not harming. So how we harm others is through belligerence. A state of mind which is belligerent. And why we create this, we have this, is because of ignorance. We do not want suffering, we want happiness, but because of ignorance about the causes of pain and pleasure, the root cause is ignorance. So ignorance is the factor which causes the unruliness of our mind, undisciplined mind. And so in Buddhism, there is talk of the wisdom, or intelligence. So the better you have and you are able to use this intelligence, you are better equipped at avoiding the unwanted causes of pain and trying to practice the causes or accumulate or engage in the causes which bring about happiness. So this ignorance cannot be eliminated merely by prayer, through prayer, and by saying, may this go away. So this ignorance must be eliminated from our mind by analyzing the reality, the real nature of things. So there's no other way to eliminate ignorance from within our mind stream. And in what is said in the Madhyamaka Avatara, this entering the middle way, I do reflect on these on a day, every day. It is at the towards the end of the 6th chapter, thus illuminated by the rays of wisdom's light. Chapter 6, verse 224. So this talks about how to eliminate this ignorance, because of which things and beings appear to us as if they have some objective independent existence, whereas when you analyze them, search for their identity, there's nothing that you can find to have objective existence. So the Bodhisattva sees as clearly as a gooseberry on his open palm that the three realms of in their entirety are unborn from their very start, and through the force of conventional truth he journeys to cessation. So I reflect on these lines, for I have been doing this for decades. And so having done that, I am at a stage where I can say that I am somewhere near by the true cessation.
So though
225, the next verse, though his mind may rest continuously in cessation, he also generates compassion for beings bereft of protection. So because of ignorance, these beings are bereft of what they wish to have, happiness, and they are overcome with what they don't want, suffering. And so overcoming suffering and experiencing happiness, because of not knowing the causes for these, they are unable to create the causes for happiness and avoid those causes for suffering, and therefore we feel compassion for them. And so because they suffer out of ignorance of what brings about causes, the happiness, and overcomes suffering, advancing further, he will also outshine through his wisdom all those born from the Buddha's speech and the middle Buddhas. So since we need to overcome ignorance by through wisdom realizing emptiness, so you need to overcome the mind which is totally erroneous about the nature of things, which is opposite to wisdom. We need to develop this, or the light of wisdom of emptiness, and like a king of swans, soaring ahead of other accomplished swans, with white wings of conventional and ultimate truth spread wide, propelled by the powerful winds of virtue, the Bodhisattva would cruise to the excellent far shore, the oceanic qualities of the conquerors. So with these two wings of conventional and ultimate truths, the Bodhisattvas gradually eliminate all their faults, and with the help of the skillful means, combined with the wisdom, they tread along the path and finally attain the Buddhahood, which is qualified by the 4 Buddha bodies. And so all of us have Tathagata Garbha, the essence of Buddha, or what is known as Buddha nature. So as long as we have a mind, the true nature of the mind itself is luminosity and awareness. And when we come to this very subtle, the subtlest nature of the mind, the subtlest mind, there is this innate quality of awareness and cognition, or clarity or luminosity. So there's no stains of the afflictions and so forth at that level. So all the stains or defilements that are in our mind stream are not in the intrinsic nature of the mind, and ignorance and so forth, therefore, can be overcome and eliminated from our mind stream. And when you are able to understand this and then be able to combine both the understandings of conventional reality and ultimate reality, the 2 wings, which you will be led to the omniscient state. I'm not just saying these because these are taught in the scriptures or the books, but for decades, because of having reflected on these teachings and having done analysis on them, I have found them to be effective in making transformation within our minds, and therefore Bodhichitta becomes something alive in me. so that I'm able to transform the self-cherishing attitude into cherishing others over oneself alone, and then being able to see also that things do not exist the way they appear to me, and therefore though they do appear to have some objective existence, they do not exist that way, and therefore they are like a illusion, magical illusion. And therefore, by combining both the skillful means or method and wisdom, I'm able to see that it is possible for me to reach Buddhahood. Of course, this doesn't come at once, but as it is said in the Heart Sutra, the Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha, you need to go through this 5-tiered path, which begins with path of accumulation, going on to preparation and seeing, meditation, and finally normal learning. And therefore, propelled by the winds of the virtue, the Bodhisattva would cruise to the excellent far shore. And so, through the force of conventional truth, he journeys to cessation. And so I can see that there is a possibility and a hope for me to reach the path of seeing. And therefore, when you actually reflect on the teachings and begin to see that there is a possibility to develop these paths within yourself, then you feel the real taste of the teaching as taught in the scriptures, that it is possible for one to tread along the path as referred or shown by this Tatyatha Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha, the mantra of the Heart Sutra. So we need to transform our minds through effort by developing these experiences that are taught in the scriptures within ourselves. And therefore, to my Dharma friends, I am just reporting to you that from my own experience, this is what happens to you. So the teaching on the Autocommentary of entering the middle way, so entering the middle way teaches both the extensive path as well as the profound view. Whereas Mula Madhyamaka Karika, the fundamental verses of the middle way, mainly shows the emptiness or the wisdom part. So I have received the transmission of the root text, Madhyamaka Avatara, from my Bhikshu Upadhyaya, or the precept master, Yabje Rinpoche, and I have received the transmission of this auto-commentary on entering the middle way from the late Khenpo Kunga Wangchuk Rinpoche. So since I have memorized this text, the root text, Madhyamaka Avatara, and have recited it on a daily basis in my childhood, though I'm not able to do that these days, but whenever I have time, I always make sure to read a few pages, 2, 3, 4, or 5 pages at least, on a daily basis from this auto-commentary. So this is very, very helpful for me. It's very good. So where have we come? Yesterday, where did we stop? We are on page 17, if you have the Venerable George Shiranov's translation. Page 14. The third paragraph from the bottom. So yesterday, it was stopped at, and so forth. So, and so forth. And then next comes, it is taught. I'm not able to locate this line. Yeah. So why is that? Like it is like this, strongly clinging to the birth or generation, strongly clinging to mind, and strongly clinging to enlightenment, and so forth. It is taught. Now, further, enlightenment is without characteristics, since it is devoid of the nature of characteristics. So, the Bodhi or enlightenment. So, in order to have the aspiration to reach that goal of Bodhi or enlightenment, first one needs to understand what it means to be enlightened. The Tibetan word is Changchup. Chang means to purify all the defilements together with the stains left on the mind. When they are eliminated, the natural state of the mind, the luminous nature of the mind, which is there all the time, and then this luminous nature of the mind, which has the clarity and or awareness, is able to see everything as it is. And therefore, the chup means to be able to have the full knowledge of everything. And so that, realized by someone like this, is called enlightenment. But what was expressed is not so. Suvikranta Vikramin. Because of realizing those phenomena, one speaks of bodhisattvas. Suvikranta Vikramin, someone, while not knowing and not completely realizing these phenomena, perceiving in his thought bodhisattva to himself, that bodhisattva is far from the bodhisattva grounds. And he is far from the bodhisattva's dharmas. Similarly, by the name of bodhisattva, he is deceiving the worlds of the gods or deities, humans, and demigods, asuras. Suvikranta Vikramin, if by the mere words one becomes a bodhisattva, then all sentient beings would become a bodhisattva also. Suvikranta Vikramin, this is not mere action of speech. Like this, it is the ground of the bodhisattva, and so forth. The statement, the attainment of bodhicitta, which has been explained is not only expressed just by just the term bodhisattva on that occasion. Moreover, he is also born in the lineage of the Tathagatas. All his three fetters are abandoned. The bodhisattva is detained. So verse number 1:6 is able to vibrate 100 world systems or move. Because he has passed beyond all levels of ordinary beings, hearers and solitary realizers, and because he has generated a path which pursues the Tathagata ground, called universal light, the bodhisattva is born in the Tathagata lineage. Then, through the directly seeing the self as a person, he is devoid also from the three fetters. viewing the identity view, doubt, and holding morality and codes of behavior as supreme, because they will not grow again. Not seeing suchness, he will view the self of the transitory collection as a transitory collection through superimposition, and similarly due to doubt, there is a possibility to proceed also on another path, otherwise not. Since he has entered into the certainty of Maya and the lineage, he attains the qualities caused by that and separates from the false of grounds discordant class. Thereby, because of a multitude extreme joy due to special growth of extraordinary joy, the Bodhisattva also maintains the supreme joy. And because of having especially distinguished extreme joy, this ground obtains the name extremely joyous. So there is a reason why this ground of Bodhisattva is called extremely joyous. And so we can also have the hope to reach such a ground. When you see these qualities, he is also able to move 100 world systems. He advances from ground to ground and fully progresses upwards. Then all his paths of bad migration are ceased. Then all his levels of ordinary being are exhausted. He is indicated to be like the 8th Arya. Regarding the aforesaid, because of the familiarizing with the doctrine, just as it was born in the mind, and because of great delight in advancing to the second ground and so forth, when advancing from ground to ground, he will fully progress upwards. In brief, just as for the Arya stream enterer, falls are separated from the qualities, and qualities arise through realizing the Arya's doctrine, concordant with him. Similarly, for this Bodhisattva too, qualities arise and faults are exhausted, appropriate to him, through realizing a ground. That is made completely clear by means of the example of a stream enterer. This Bodhisattva, page 19, even abiding in the mind of complete enlightenment, the solitary realizers, along with those born from the mighty subduer speech, are outshone and exceeded by the power of the merits. And that which was just said is another distinction, since it was taught in the Liberation of Maitreya Sutra. Son of good lineage, it is like this. For example, a prince, not long after birth, possesses a royal name, outshining even all the principal elders, assembly of ministers, by the power of the great natural essence of lineage. Similarly, a novice bodhisattva, not long after having generated the mind toward enlightenment, also due to birth in the lineage of the Tathagatas, the king of doctrine, by the power of the Bodhichitta and great compassion, outshines the hearers and solitary realizers who have practiced purity for a long time. Son of good lineage, it is like this. For example, whatever force there is of thrust of wings, and whatever immaculate quality of eye there is not long after birth of the offspring of the great Lord of Garudas, they do not exist with any of the elders of all assemblies of birds other than that. Similarly, the Bodhisattva generating the initial mind of enlightenment, the offspring of the great Lord of Garudas, has perfectly risen in the continuum and so forth. And then next comes the next line. On the ground, on the going afar, he will also surpass intelligence. And so, having reached the first ground, and then going on to through this second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then the Bodhisattva reaches this ground called going afar, the seventh ground. As was taught in the Exalted Sutra on the 10th ground, O children of the conqueror, it is like this. For example, a prince born in a royal lineage, bearing a royal name, outshines all the assembly of ministers by the magnificence of royalty through the mere birth, not by analysis through the strength of his own intelligence. When he has matured, he will greatly surpass all the activities of ministers through generating the strength of his intelligence. So a bodhisattva going through the from the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grounds, and then reached the seventh ground. O children of the conqueror, similarly, as soon as Bodhisattva generates a mind, he too outshines all hearers in solitary realization through greatness of special thought, not by analysis through the strength of his own intelligence. The Bodhisattva who abides on this seventh Bodhisattva ground will greatly surpass all the activities of hearers and solitary realizers through abiding in greatness of knowing his own sphere. One should know, therefore, indeed only from the gone afar, and so forth. Next page. It says, from this criterion, citation, one can clearly ascertain that hearers and solitary realizers also have the knowledge that all phenomena do not inherently exist. So this is a very significant part of this auto-commentary. If it were not like that, because they would be separated from the thorough knowledge that things do not inherently exist, like those separated from mundane attachment, they too would be outshone, even by bodhisattvas who had generated the initial mind, even through analysis by their own intelligence. So just realizing the selflessness of when a person is seen as lacking the substantial autonomous existence, so that alone is not enough to realize full emptiness, selflessness. One must realize the non-inherent existence of a person. So likewise, the outsiders, non-Buddhists, they too would not abandon all subtle increases or afflictions which are activated in the three realms because of erring as a result of referring to the self-entity of form and so forth. And then next it says, as was taught in this precious garland, 35 through 37, as long as grasping to the great aggregates exists, so long grasping to the I exists due to it. When grasping to I exists, there is also action. From that also there is rebirth. And so when you have a sense of an I, you actually get that sense of an I based on your aggregates, as it is taught in the Ratnavali, the precious garland. A person is neither earth, water, and so forth. And what else then is a person? We do say my body, my speech, my mind. So these three, the body, speech, and mind, are seen as if they are the enjoyments, objects of enjoyment of yourself. But then you are the enjoyer of these three, or the user. So, but where is that I which enjoys or utilizes this body, speech, and mind? So the mind and so forth are not the self, the person. So when you push the logic further, you will see none other than a person being merely designated, merely nominal. And then verse number 34, 35, 36 in the 6th chapter of Madhyamaka Avatara. And so, having rejected that things have any objective characteristic, intrinsic characteristics, then Master Chandrakirti goes on to ask, does that mean things do not exist? And then he goes on to say, Empty things dependent on convergences, such as reflections and so on, are not unknown. Verse number 37. So a person is designated on the basis of his or her psychophysical aggregates. And so when you see that these aggregates do not exist the way they appear to us yourself, that they have some kind of objective existence, you'll be able to see, infer from that the person who is designated on the basis of them cannot have any objective existence at all. If individual elements are different, fire with earth, fuel would follow. So these verses from Precious Garlands, just as so verse which begins with also consciousness, feeling, discrimination, and compositional factors individually, because lacking a meaningful essence in any way, are meaningless as ultimate objects. So, of course, we get a sense of an I based on our psychophysical aggregates, the consciousness and so forth. But when they are seen as not having any objective existence, inherent existence, the person designated on the basis of them will also be seen as having no objective intrinsic existence. Just as the relieving of suffering is fancied happiness in the object, likewise the suppression of happiness is also fancied as suffering. Thus, because lacking entities abandon craving of meeting with pleasures and the craving of separation from pain, therefore liberate seeing that like that. If asked, what sees? Conventionally, one says the mind. Without mental factors, mind does not exist because meaningless. So it is not accepted to exist. Thus, perfectly and properly, having known microitis as meaningless, like a fire, without causes, without abiding, without grasping, pass beyond sorrow. In this case, it is said, only bodhisattvas see the lack of self-nature like that. Next page, 21. That too, so is not so because that was taught from the viewpoint of hearers and solitary realizers. If asked, how is that known? Response. Because just immediately afterwards, from the viewpoint of the bodhisattvas, it is said in the Precious Garland, also bodhisattvas, having seen thus, definitely desire enlightenment, yet due to compassion they maintain a becoming until enlightenment. And so forth. In order to abandon the hearer's deluded obscurations, it is even stated in sutras revealed to the hearers that form is like a mass of foam, feeling like a water bubble, discrimination like mirage, and so forth, and so forth. Hence, through the example of the mass form, a water bubble, mirage water, the parts of the plantain tree, illusions for the compounded phenomena are definitely analyzed to indicate this very meaning in the holy words of Acharya Nagarjuna. It is said in the Precious Garland, non-generation taught in the Mahayana and the exhaustion by the other are emptiness. Exhaustion and non-generation mean the same, except just that. Similarly, it was taught in the traditional middle way, in the precepts of Katyayana, the Bhagwan, through exalted knowledge of things and non-things, refuted both existence and non-existence. And then there is one, namely Bhaviveka, who considered in mind, if the selflessness of phenomena was also indicated in the hearer's vehicle, then it would become meaningless to teach the Mahayana. His system also is realized like this, as contradictory with reason and scriptures. So in the Mahayana, the great vehicle, not only the selflessness of persons and phenomena are taught, but it also teaches the bodhisattva paths and grounds and so forth. So, towards the end of the page 21, it says, the Mahayana teachings are appropriate in order to clarify the selflessness of phenomena because they are asserted to express the teaching of extensively. In the hearer's vehicle, selflessness of phenomena is exhausted through brief indication, as was taught from the holy speech of the Acharya Nagarjuna, praise of the supramundane. He taught that not realizing the signlessness is without liberation. Therefore, you finally revealed it completely in the Mahayana. Enough by treating the ancillary topics. Page 22. So in order to help other sentient beings, first one practices giving and causes delight in others to follow the teaching, and then you start giving teachings to them. Therefore, since those without undistracted intelligence will be able to understand the thusness of the meaning of by themselves, I shall explain the principal part. Then for him, the first course of a completed Buddha's enlightenment, just giving becomes surpassing. For the Bodhisattva who attained the extremely joyous ground from among the 10 called giving, morality, patience, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom, method, prayer, strength, and exalted wisdom, only giving going beyond will become greatly surpassing. It is not that he does not have the others. Also, that giving is the first course of the omniscient state, since even giving away his flesh is done with devotion. It also is the cause of inferring the unsuitable to appear. What is imperceptible? At that, the qualities of a bodhisattva are not suitable to appear. Not observed yet, whatever they are, just such as realizing the ground and so forth, they are clearly inferred through the inference of distinction, giving away material of outer inner sense and so forth. And then the next verse, number 10, all beings strongly desire happiness, yet there is no human happiness without resources. Having known that resources are also arise from giving, the subduer at first gave discourse on giving. So all of us, of course, do like to have wealth and possessions. The antidotes of hunger, thirst, sickness, cold, and so forth are mere remedies of suffering and causes for the pleasure of existence to occur. Through judging the continuity of essence with mere mistaken bondage, the world very strongly adheres to pleasure, whose essence is not free of harm. Such pleasure, the pleasure of that strong desire, is of the nature of the mere remedy of suffering. It is not observed to be produced without an enjoyment of resources. The enjoyment, having mistaken sense and resources, the objects of strong desire being the antidote of suffering. So these we stop at page 23, first paragraph, which begins with saying, having known that, and then ends with, gave just the discourse on giving at the very beginning. So let's start with the question and answer, please.
Yes. Your Holiness, thank you so much for your today's teaching. I'm extremely happy to see you again today. And now we shall start with the question and answer. The first question comes from Ms. Nguyễn Thái Hòa from Vietnam. Ms. Nguyễn, please.
Good morning, Your Holiness. My question is, would Your Holiness explain on the difference between the I, which exists conventionally, and the I, which ignorant grab us? Thank you so much.
As I said before, when we say my body, my speech, and my mind, there is a notion or a sense as if there is an I which possesses the body, speech, and mind, as if there's some kind of a solid I. But if that were to exist, when we search for that identity of an I, But that doesn't mean, but you will not be able to find that. That doesn't mean that the I or the person does not exist at all. So, this conventional everyday I should not be put to the test of everyday, put to the test of the reason. As it is said in Madhyamaka Avatara, so this I that appears to your mind as if it has some kind of intrinsic characteristic, objective existence, that is what we need to negate when we talk about emptiness. Whereas the I, which is designated based on the aggregates, the psychophysical aggregates, that is the conventional I. That is not to be refuted or negated. To our minds, what appears is that this I that you have a sense of exists as if it has some kind of a substantial independent existence. So, an I which is merely designated on the basis of, based on the psychophysical aggregates, does exist. And therefore, we need to differentiate between the two truths. On the basis of the appearance of things and phenomena, we, because of our because we are used to our affective emotions, the mental afflictions, we have this instinctive kind of a notion or grasping at some kind of objectively existing I. It appears as if there is some kind of a solid, independent I, but that is to be rejected.
Next.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
Our second question is from Miss Renzi from Indonesia.
Your Holiness, could you please explain more about purchase and non-purchase karma? Thank you.
So to simply put it, those actions which bring about good results are good karmas. Those which bring about bad consequences are bad karmas. So when we talk about, when we say that we should create good karma and to overcome the bad karmas, we are talking about bringing about the causes of happiness more within ourselves, creating the more of those causes which bring about happiness, and avoiding the causes which bring about suffering in us. So the bad karmas which bring about unhappiness or suffering are rooted mainly in our ignorance, and also the selfishness. And so the karmas which bring about good results and bad results are good and bad karmas, respectively. Next, please.
Thank you, Your Holiness. We will now have Miss Banusa Bonsri from Thailand for the next question. Miss Banusa, your question, please.
สวัสดีค่ะ Your Holiness. Nowadays, many people in the world are facing mental health issues, namely depression, anxiety, and panic attack. What can each of us do to cope with these problems? Thank you.
As we do not want suffering but want happiness, which is natural instinct, the different sufferings and miseries, and also which are in the environment, we become unhappy, depressed, and anxious, and have panic attack. So these, in a sense, are natural, something that happens to us naturally. So suffering comes because of causes and conditions. But when you have suffering, one should not feel demoralized and discouraged. When you are in an environment where you see things being destroyed and you become anxious and unhappy and so forth, we need to take care of the environment as well by purifying the water or planting trees and plants and so forth. So we need to pay attention to environmental protection. And also, from a Dharma point of view, because we do not want suffering and we want happiness, we need to have the self-confidence by thinking about the Dharma, which teaches us how to overcome even the sufferings of aging and death in the end. So if you feel discouraged and depressed, nothing really helps. Therefore, one should develop self-confidence, because all of us, according to the theistic religions, we are all creations of the God. Whereas, so we are like children of that God, according to theistic religion. So God is full of love and does not have the will or to bring us unhappiness, suffering. So this is from the point of view of the theistic religions. Whereas in the Indian tradition and Buddhism particularly, our pain and pleasure comes through our own actions or karma, which we have created. It's not like something that came to us by chance, like a lightning bolt. So we need to see what causes suffering, and we need to search or look at the causes of suffering and avoid them. So we need to have be more open-minded, have a broader view, and see whether it is possible to overcome suffering. If you see it's possible, of course, you need to put effort in overcoming it. We are born in this samsara, and therefore we are bound to have some pleasure and pain as well. So there is no use being worried, feeling worried about suffering. As Shantideva says, if there is a remedy, why be unhappy? If there is no remedy, then what is the use of being worried? And so this is a realistic approach. So the next question, please. Next question.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Hi, His Holiness. Sorry, our mother lost her signal. Okay, the next question is from Singapore. Alexis Day, please. Alexis, please ask a question.
Good morning, Your Holiness. The question is, a person who has lost a loved one might be psychologically grasping onto a sense of hope and therefore readily accepts the ideas of bardo and rebirth as a form of self-consolation. How can he or she check up on the truth, and what advice would you give for them to be able to pursue their practice even with the constant self-doubt and questioning? Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So regarding that, if you give thought to this, this body has come from the parents, our parents, the sperm and the ovum. Merely these two coming together does not form a person, a human being, but there is what is called consciousness, which conceives within this the gameta of the sperm and the ovum. So when the consciousness enters the womb, where these two seeds of the parents come together, then a person is formed, a human being is formed, and therefore merely having the two seeds together does not form a person, a human being. Therefore, there is a third course for that to happen. So, that factor, the third factor, is there, which enters the gamete of the sperm and the ovum to form a person. And so, to be born as a child of one's parents, one's consciousness first enters into the womb, where the two sperm, the sperm and the ovum meets. So there are children, very young children, who are able to remember their past lives. This happens because there's something to remember for them. And then secondly, so the substantial cause of our body comes from the parents. And we can trace the substantial cause of our parents and their parents and so forth for many generations of for centuries. Whereas the mind or consciousness, regarding its substantial cause, it comes from a previous moment of consciousness. In Tantra, there is teaching on the various degrees of subtlety within the consciousness. So when we die, what happens is the states of mind or consciousness, which are very much dependent on our the body, stops functioning. And then the subtle mind, which are not so dependent on this body, goes from this life to the next. And at the time of when a person dies or has gone through the process of dying, there are people who remain in some kind of a meditative state for days on. And for example, my own senior tutor, Jabjeling Rinpoche, stayed in that state of meditation even after clinical death for over about 13 days. And so during that period of time, the body does not decompose. And there are also other people in Tibetan society who, there were many people who, whom I knew also stayed in that state of meditative state. When the doctors or physicians and scientists checked their body, they find the body was, did not decompose even after clinical death. And therefore, the subtle mind still is said to reside within the body while the person is in that meditative state. And so the body and the mind or consciousness must have their own substantial causes. So if there is no consciousness, then we cannot talk about the consciousness conceiving in the mother's womb as such. And so, because of the consciousness, we can talk about people being able to remember their past life and people being able to stay in that meditative state even after clinical death and so forth. And so, just as the body's substantial cause has no beginning, likewise, consciousness also has no beginning and its substantial cause. And so, from this we can prove the existence of past lives. So when someone's loved ones have died, you become very unhappy, as the questioner says. It does not help merely if you remain worried and being unhappy. So, of course, your own parents of this life will also be connected to you, whether you recognize them or not, in their next life as well. Wherever they may be reborn, you will come in contact with them, whether you know them or not. So you should have this hope that sooner or later you'll be able to meet with them again. So this will be helpful because of past and future lives. So next question.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Now we invite Ms. Chan Siu Ping from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. She will now pose the 5th question. Ms. Chan, please.
Your Holiness, my question is, how can we change the pattern of our bad habits which appear so firm? Thank you.
Similar. Similar. So in the Tibetan, there needs to be an additional particle after mind, which is not there. Therefore, it didn't make sense to His Holiness in the Tibetan. As I said earlier, someone who may be very angry, a short-tempered person, but that person can also change and become a very kind and warm-hearted person. Whereas someone who may be in the beginning very warm-hearted, kind, and so forth, can also become a bad, short-tempered person, bad-natured person as well. And so things can change. So from the point of view of religion, and particularly Buddhism, we talk about transforming our mind by reducing the causes which bring about suffering and increasing the causes which bring about happiness. From my own experience, I can tell this very clearly. So when you change your mind, transform your mind, everything becomes, appears like a positive. Whereas if you remain negative, then things around you, everything will appear negative to you. And so, to change your mind is to be done by using our mind and thinking through over and over again, but through the reasons. Next question, please.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Our next question comes from Ho Chi Minh City, from Ms. Do Ngọc Trinh. We now have last 2 questions. Ms. Do, please.
Good morning, Your Holiness. From Buddha teaching, I know that we should have not grasping needed. Please advise what mantra should I recite at the time of near death? And what should I do to prepare for that time? Thank you, Your Holiness. I wish you good health and long life.
So that's true. around the time of death, when you are near to death, you should not have attachment or anger. So some of my friends, when they were approaching death, they keep a Buddha image in front of them, or some of them even keep a picture of me. And while looking at the images, and they go through the process of dissolution, and so that actually leaves some positive imprint in their mind. So as Buddhists, if you're a Buddhist, then you should have a Buddha image in front of you at the time of death, so that you go through the dissolution process while watching the Buddha image and thinking of the Buddha. And then when we talk about the Buddha, the Shakyamuni Buddha, the mighty subduer, so sometimes we think of him as an historical figure, but of course it may not be so nice for me to tell you that you may keep a picture or image of me in front of you, because I do practice bodhicitta on a daily basis, and the wisdom of emptiness as well. And so Buddha may be sometimes may seem to be far from you. So if you keep a picture of me, that would also be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Holiness, for your precious answer. Now we move to the last question of today's teaching from Mr. Daniel Yeo from Malaysia.
Tashi Delay and good morning, Your Holiness. My question is, how can we practice Bodhihearts and have the view of emptiness in daily life? Thank you.
So regarding that, as far as I'm concerned, as soon as I wake up in the morning, I reflect on Bodhichitta, the spirit of enlightenment. So in order to fulfill the aims of oneself and others, I shall generate bodhicitta. And so there's nothing greater than meditating on bodhicitta to overcome or purify your negativities, and nothing greater to accumulate merit and wisdom greater than this bodhicitta. To fulfill your own goals, the best means is bodhicitta. And to help others, directly or indirectly, if you meditate on bodhicitta, that will bring about benefit to others directly or indirectly, and you will not have ill will towards others with bodhicitta. And so bodhicitta is an incredible factor for accumulating merit and purifying negativities and obscurations. So if you have an animal, even a kind animal, other animals come around that animal, like a dog. If a dog always barks at others, then no other dogs will come to him or her. And similarly, if you have a good heart towards all others, you will have more friends around you. And so bodhicitta is very beneficial even in this life. So with regard to emptiness, the view of emptiness, when you check what actually disturbs your mind, your peace of mind, it is this sense of an independently existing I. So you have a strong sense of me or myself. And this notion of independent self or I is countered by the view of emptiness. Even if you may be able to think about the gross or the coarse level of selflessness of a person, this will be helpful. So what else is there?
That is one. That's enough.
So at the end, I wanted to do the Bodhichitta ceremony. So we'll go through what is known as the all-encompassing yoga mind, so which constitutes both bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, and the ultimate bodhicitta. So as I quoted the lines from Madhyamaka Avatara, verse 224, 25, and 26, 224, 25. So these two can be used for reflecting on the conventional bodhicitta. So as you reflect on them more and more, and you go travel along the path to Buddhahood, you will have the two wings of bodhicitta and the ultimate truth, so that you are able to journey through the paths of accumulation, preparation, seeing, and so forth, as referred by the Heart Sutra mantra. So as far as I'm concerned, it seems that I am approaching the second gati, which is which refers to the path of preparation or application. So, though to reach the path of seeing may be difficult without a single-pointed concentration, so it's not that it is impossible to reach that if you put effort. So you do not actually talk about someone else reaching those paths, but you can actually refer to yourself as being able to tread along the path of through the path of accumulation to preparation, seeing, meditation, and then the bodhi, which is Buddhahood. And so through this practice of bodhicitta and the realization of emptiness, I find myself on a daily basis to be peaceful. And so your compassion towards sentient beings is not lost. You do not consider others to be your enemy as per se, and so you don't lose your compassion towards sentient beings. So this is very helpful to bring about peace of mind within yourself. So verses 22, 24 and 25, and the 6th chapter says, thus illuminated by the rays of wisdom light, the Bodhisattva sees as clearly as gooseberry on his open palm that the three realms in their entirety are unborn and from their very start. And through the force of conventional truth, he journeys to cessation. So here it shows the meditation on emptiness. So the clear light of the emptiness. And then the next verse, though his mind may rest continuously in cessation, he also generates compassion for beings bereft of protection. Advancing further, he will outshine through his wisdom, and so forth. So you should have this confidence in yourself that you will be able to cultivate these paths. And as a human being, having been born as a human being, what you should think is not to have any ill will towards others, to harm others at all. And so not just saying that I'm not going to harm anybody is not enough. So you should think about what brings about suffering. It is brought about by our karmas, which in turn are created because of unruly mind, because of these mental afflictions. And therefore, as Master Nagarjuna says, exhausting karma and mental afflictions, there is liberation. And so you should also have this confidence that it is possible to reach true cessation by eliminating the causes of suffering. And so the Buddha says, no suffering, abandon causes of suffering, and attain the true cessation and cultivate the path, true path. And then he goes on to say, there's the suffering must be overcome, but there's nothing to be overcome. The origin and the suffering must be known, but there's nothing to be known. The origin of suffering must be overcome, but there's nothing to be overcome, and so forth. So it is an advice or instruction of the Buddha for all of us. So first, meditate on Bodhichitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment, as much as you can. So, next, if you reflect on where is this person who has meditated on emptiness, who is that person? When you search for that identity of the person or the self, you will not find it, but it doesn't mean the person does not exist. It does not exist objectively from its own side. That is what appears to our mind, but it does not exist that way. Now think of emptiness of the person. So here you are looking at me, you are seeing the Dalai Lama. But if you search for my identity within the aggregates, my body is not me. You see my body, you hear my speech, and from my talk, you get some sense of what kind of thoughts are going on in my mind. But where is the Dalai Lama? If you search for my identity, you will not be able to pinpoint anything as being me. So in the Madhyamaka text, it is said that things are merely designated by names. But do not exist objectively. So this is what you should think. In quantum physics also, they talk about nothing having an objective existence. So similarly, in the Madhyamaka treatises, by using the different reasonings, such as the reasoning of the analyzing the cause, which is the diamond splinter, the reasoning of refuting existence and non-existence, which analyzes the effect, and so forth. So there are different reasonings that are used to prove, such as the fivefold reasoning analysis, the sevenfold analysis, and so forth. So nothing whatever exists the way they appear to our mind. So have this determination that nothing whatever exists the way they appear to me at all. And so this is creating the foundation for ultimate bodhicitta. So meditate on emptiness now, please.
Oh yeah.
So as I quoted earlier, towards the end of this 6th chapter, thus illuminated by the rays of wisdom's light, 224, The Bodhisattva sees as clearly as gooseberry on his open palm that the three realms in their entirety are unborn from the very start, and through the force of conventional truth he journeys to cessation. Though his mind may rest continuously in cessation, he also generates compassion for beings bereft of protection. Advancing further, he will also outshine through his wisdom all those born from the Buddha's speech and the middle Buddhas, and like a king of swans, soaring ahead of other accomplished swans with white wings of conventional ultimate truth spreads wide, propelled by the power of winds of virtue, the Bodhisattva would cruise to the excellent far shore, the ocean qualities of the conquerors. And so, through this combination of Bodhichitta and the realization of emptiness, you'll be able to journey along the path to Buddhahood and finally reach that goal, and culminating in Buddhahood. So, the Autocommentary of Entering the Middle Way is quite a long text. So we are not able to finish it this time. We have not been able to finish it this time, and we will be able to continue this teaching. And so, as a conclusion of this teaching this time, I have done the ceremony for these two bodhicittas, the conventional bodhicitta, the altruistic spirit of enlightenment, and the ultimate bodhicitta, the realization of emptiness. So I have become your guru, from whom you received this teaching on the two bodhicittas. Therefore, make this practice of these two bodhicittas your daily practice. So when you familiarize yourself with these two, over time you'll see some change in you. So for decades I have been meditating on these two, and therefore over this period of time, I have seen change within myself, transforming taking place. And so all of us are same as being human beings. And therefore, we have the same kind of human intelligence. And therefore, if this transformation happens to me, it will also happen to you as well. And therefore, please keep this in mind. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness, for the 2 days discourse. We have greatly benefited from the topic and your guidance of this teaching and also the meditation on bodhicitta. And this wrap up the 15th year of our Asia teaching. Really, thank you, Your Holiness. We started off as Southeast Asia teaching, and over the last 5 years, we have changed it to Asia teaching through the kindness of your guidance. And we, on behalf of our Asia teaching organizer, we express our gratitude to Your Holiness and also to the entire office of His Holiness, our volunteers, and all the translators involved in the success of this teaching. And we delegate the marriage to the long life of Your Holiness, and may your wishes be quickly fulfilled. And also for the good health and safety of everyone globally as the world gradually heals from the pandemic. And lastly, we sincerely request Your Holiness to continue to teach us every year. And may we, your students, and all the beings be able to receive your teaching in all our lifetime until enlightenment. And I'm already looking forward to next year Asia teaching. And I believe everyone in this call is. Thank you, Your Holiness. Thank you very much.
Dedication verses from the Samantabhata prayer. So 2 verses from the Samantabhadra prayer for dedication.
Okay.